Hi, welcome to my Pimp Me Shoot show. Today's guest is the SKS, more specifically the aftermarket polymer stocks for the SKS. Now let's get rid of the white elephant in the room. Some members of my gun community, every time they see these on an SKS, they scream, Bubba. Well, it is not a Bubba, it's a Pimp. And the difference is a Pimp is reversible and a Bubba is not. By definition, a Bubba is a permanent modification of a historic gun. And by the way, not all SKS are historic. Here is an example. This one is an SKSD built in 2001. It's only 23 years old, and there's nothing historic about that. You could buy a French tickler built in 1979. There's nothing historic about that either, because historic, when it comes to a Chinese SKS, is Vietnam War era. In other words, 1975 or earlier. When it comes to Yugo, it would be like 1995 or earlier. 1995 is when the conflict ended. Okay, so that is the difference. That is why this is called a Pimp show and not a Bubba show. Now let's carry on. So, who buy these aftermarket polymer stocks? Quite often, it's guys who wanted to bring their SKS into the new millennia. They wanted pistol grips, retractable stocks, and rails, and so on and so forth. But most of all, they wanted a detachable magazine with a capacity of more than 10. And the cheapest way to do that is to get yourself a Duckbill magazine. This costs $50. It holds 30 rounds. But in Canada, it doesn't matter if it's an OEM or Duckbill. We are restricted to 5 rounds only. So for us, it's mostly for the cool factor. We think banana mags are cool. In any case, a year and a half ago, I did 2 videos on the Duckbill magazine, and they did surprisingly well. One did over 40,000 views, and the other one over 12,000 views. And so therefore, I have to follow it up with polymer stocks. Okay, and I knew these were going to be expensive. That's why I turned towards the pre-owned market. What I didn't know would take me close to a year to acquire all 6 of them. And some of them might even be obsolete. But that doesn't matter. They're still available in the pre-owned market, and you might still be interested in the review. There's one stock that's missing from this group, and that's the Dragunov stock. But I never liked the design anyway, so I'm going to do without it. One stock that took the longest to get is the Fab Defense. Even if I wanted to buy them brand new, the stores are all sold out. And the sellers in the pre-owned market either sold them with the rifle or they just wanted too much money for them, which I can't afford. Yes, you're going to say, oh, you could have imported them from overseas. Yes, but that's still I can't afford. So therefore, there's one thing I would not do today is show you how to install these, because if I did, it would take over 2 hours. But I will have them installed on a rifle, and I will discuss any issues I have with the installation. When you buy one of these, you're expected to hand fit them anyway, because they're one size fit all. And you don't expect one size to fit SKS from half a dozen countries. You don't even expect, you expect small variation from country to country, but you also expect small variation from production to production, like mid, early, and late production. You expect small variations. You also expect small variation from factory to factory, year to year. Okay, so therefore I'm not going to be taking it to the range and shooting with them, because it won't make any difference, because you'll still have to hand fit them. It's up to you how you hand fit them. But I will do a desktop review and give you my opinion what I think of them. Okay, so of the 6, these are what the 6 makes. The first one is the Ram line. Okay, this is the cheapest. This is the most expensive. Ram line, the Combat Exchange, Tapco, ProMag Archangel, ATI, and of course the most expensive is the Fab Defense UAS. So I shall be back. Don't go away. I am back. Now before I begin, I want to mention that I'll text in the times that you can actually skip to if you're interested in a particular aftermarket polymer stock. And let's begin with the cheapest, and that is the Ram line. And I chose to use a 1953 Russian SKS, and the only reason why I chose this is because this is a converted, it's called an SKD in Canada, not an SKSD. KD, of course, stands for Kodiak Defense, and they converted a whole bunch of these several years ago to accept AK magazines. And now, like I said, it's been converted, so therefore they have removed the top handguard and put it back, and they use a roll pin. So therefore it's a lot easier for me to just remove the roll pin rather than use another gun and punch out the roll pin. So that's why I'm using this SKS KD. Now, whenever you put in one of these polymer aftermarket stocks, the first thing you must do, you should do actually, not must, but you should do, is remove the bayonet and the cleaning rod. I find it very silly for those who want to bring their SKS into the new millennia and they still want to leave the bayonet, which makes absolutely no sense to me, because fixed bayonet is old school, right? No modern gun today would do a fixed bayonet. So why don't, before I begin, actually before I start installing one of these things, I should look at the internal construction. In other words, like in here, because once it's installed, it will be difficult for you to see what's inside. Okay. This has an opening of 10.5 inches from here to here, and I can tell from the internal this is a very light construction. In other words, there's no reinforcement. Like most of the polymer would have reinforcement around the trigger housing. This one does not, and therefore I can easily press this and it'll go in quite a bit. It actually moves in like over 1/2 inch just from my squeezing this. Okay, so that to me is a fail right there. Now I'm going to have this installed, and I'll talk about if there's any issues with the installation. I have the first stock, the Ram line, installed, and it went pretty easy. No issues regarding the installation. The top handguard went in nicely, and the main stock, I will point out that you'll need a mallet to drive it forward, because you got to make sure the front of the stock fits into the furl, front furl. And if you didn't, the sides would bow out about 1/8 of an inch on each side, because it'll be pushed out by the rear sight base. Okay, so you need to make sure the stock fits to the front nicely. Let's talk about, this particular stock did not come with a spring that locks the trigger housing. I did have a spare, but it's a bit long, so I had to cut it. So if you're going to cut it, make sure to expose about 3/8 to 1/2 inch of spring. And to here's the tip: to stop it from flying out every time you disassemble it, bend the end of the spring out a bit and insert that part into the hole of the stock. That will prevent it from flying out. So that's the tip. Now let's look at the specs. It's the lightest stock. It weighed in 1.61 pounds. The LLP is 15.25 minimum. Maximum is 16.25. It is designed for guys with gorilla arms. It's way too long. Even the distance between the trigger and the back of the grip is 2 3/4, much too long for my liking. Okay, let's move on to the review. Let's talk about the positive. The positive is the grip is fixed, and I like that because it doesn't get loose while you're shooting. and all the vibration. It does have a trap door at the bottom for whatever batteries and whatever. It also has a slot in the back of the stock here, so you could remove the top cover without disassembling the gun. So you can do field stripping. So that's also a positive. I like the slotted top handguard for guys who want to do rapid shooting. It vents the heat, and I like the design, the foregrip and the top handguard. I love design. Unfortunately, it doesn't match the rest of the gun. Now let's talk about the negative, and there's plenty. This stock must be the ugliest design I've ever seen. There's nothing for the sling. And I don't understand why they couldn't have just routed a slot here for the sling. It is adjustable, about an inch of movement in 3 different positions, but it's not easy because you have to drive out the pin, move the stock, and drive the pin back in. The stock is the flimsiest stock I've ever seen. You can see it moves side to side and up and down. This is a non-foldable model. There's other ones that do fold, but this one does not. And another positive is that you could reach the back of the lock here, right, without you just punch it out, and that's a plus. Unfortunately, the negative is that the distance between the trigger and the back of the grip is long. What else is the negative? I already mentioned the sides are kind of thin, and that's basically about it. Now let's check in terms of comfort. I can no problem using the iron sight. Unfortunately, the cheek weld is uncomfortable. As you can see, they're fairly sharp. So therefore, my recommendation is to avoid this at all costs. I know it's the cheapest, but still, it's not worth buying. Next, the combat exchange. Let's look at the internal. Gap is 10.5 inches. There's reinforcement around the beside the trigger housing, and if I were to press it by hand, it moves in maybe about 1/8 of an inch, which is much better than the ram line, and it feels pretty solid in the hand. Okay, now I'm going to install it and I'll be back. Let's talk about the installation of the combat exchange. It was fairly easy for the stock and the top handguard. Don't need a mallet. Unfortunately, the top handguard is still very loose. You can see that. The back part, the front doesn't move, but the back moves quite a bit. Like I said, this one went in pretty smoothly. And let's see, the next thing, let's talk about the specs. The weight is 2.18 pounds. The LOP, it's a fixed LOP, it's 14 5/8, a little bit on the longer side, and the trigger distance between the back of the grip and the trigger is even longer than the ram line, and it's 3 inches, and it's way too far from my liking. Okay, so let's talk about the positive about this stock. It has a fixed grip, which means it doesn't come loose while firing. It does have a trap door for whatnot, your batteries, and you just slide it back. Okay, I like the texture on the four stock. It matches the grip quite nicely. It does have a groove for your spike, yes, it is spike bayonet. It's a groove for your spike bayonet. I don't see the whole point, and I kind of notice it does fit the duckbill, but the AK mag will not fit. It's too narrow over here. and it's not easy to cut. Okay, well, what are the positives? Of course, it folds. Folds like this. It doesn't unfold easily. You have to press the button again to unfold it, and it sticks sometimes. Okay. Let's now talk. Also another positive is that you can reach the lock behind the trigger guard easily. You just punch it like this, punch it like this, and it'll come up. Again, the downside for that is that the distance between the trigger and the back of the grip is extra long, like 3 inches. Let's talk about the negative. Okay, let's start from the back. And the back is that it looks like rubber, but it's not. It is hard plastic. This design looks like what you'll find on MP5 folder. Okay. There's actually no places for the sling, but you could wrap it around here. Feels, yeah, quite solid up and down. Hard plastic. Oh, here's a negative. It has a, I don't know what you call this, but it's for your thumb. And considering there's 10% of the population are lefty, this interferes. If you're a lefty, it will, of course, it'll be right into your palm. So I don't know why they did that. This is just strictly right-handed. I don't know if they have one for left-handed, but I don't see the point of putting the two difference. They should have just eliminated that. This is like an AR grip. It has a finger groove, and this is for your sling. And like I said, you could put wrap your sling around there too, and easy access for the lock, and generally that's about it. Now let me check about comfort. Yes, no problem using the iron sight, and the cheek is quite comfortable. It's nice and rounded. Like I said, unfortunately 14 5/8 LOP is long for my liking, and like I also mentioned that there's no space for the top cover to back off, so you can't do field stripping. You have to remove disassemble it to remove the top cover. So what do I think about this? This is passable. It's not the I would say if you're a big guy with long gorilla arms, yeah, this is great for you. I think for the average Joe, it's probably not good. Of course, there's with all this, there's no rails, and there's no place for the cheek risers, and that's basically about it. So this is basically passable if you have long arms and long fingers. This is Tapco Intrafuse, and before I install the stock, let's take a look inside what this looks like. It does have reinforcement around the trigger housing. You can see it right here. Okay, so when I squeeze it, it moves inwards a little bit more than the Combat Exchange, but not as bad as the Ram Light. It seemed to be moving, what I would say about a 1/4 of an inch. The handguard, lower handguard, seem to have enough ribbing here for some support. So the opening is about 10.5 inches. So I'll be back after installing. The installation of the Tapco Intrafuse went very smoothly. No issues putting in the top handguard or the stock. Although the stock, you have to remove the grip to get in to install the trigger housing. Okay, there's a long 2 1/4 inch bolt that goes into the grip, and the installation is pretty smooth, pretty easy. Okay, now let's talk about the specs. And the specs are the LOP minimum is 11.5 and the maximum is 15, and in 6 separate positions. Okay, this is 11.5 and goes all the way up to 15, and there's 6 different positions. The between the trigger and the back of the grip is 2 3/4, better than the Combat Exchange, which is 3 inches. Weight is 2.16 pounds, which is exactly like the Combat Exchange weight. Okay, now let's talk about the pros. The pros, it has a, this grip reminds me of the FN FAL grips. Okay, and I love the FN FAL grips. And another pro would be there is a rail on the top handguard, although don't expect it to be holding 0, because it is actually no rail on top of the SKS hand rail on top of the gas system is ever gonna be holding 0, so don't even expect that. But there is a rail, okay, so that is a good thing. There's no rail on the side or at the bottom, but it seems like they did leave a couple of screws here that you could put in a rail yourself if you need to. This is just a screw. I think that's what it's for. This one doubles as a sling ring. Okay, let's see, what is another pro? Pro, of course, we all know about the buttstock. The buttstock is exactly like the M4 buttstock, exactly. Of course, even though there's no cheek riser that comes with this one, you can get optional cheek risers that clips onto this. Okay, so that's a nice thing about this. You can always get different stocks that you can attach to. This buffer tube inside is hollow, and of course you can put more batteries and whatnot inside there if you wanted to. At the bottom of this, there is a clip that holds a trap door. You just pull the clip to the center and then lift it up, and then you have space for your battery right there. What else? In terms of the, I guess this is a kind of style they prefer. Not to my exact liking. I would have preferred checkered, but this is the style they chose. It feels good in the hand. This is actually, you will recognize this with any Russian stock. This is a pot belly stock made for the blade, but of course there's no accounting for the bayonet, and I prefer not to. No issues with the AK mag fitting into this stock, nor there's any issue with the Duckbill magazine. Now let's talk about the negative. The negative, I would say the top cover actually might just barely make it. You don't, yes it does, it barely just makes it, and you don't have to disassemble the gun to do your field stripping, which is a good thing. Okay. The negative, obviously the negative, I find that hopefully the grip, it has a long bolt, so hopefully it will stay in and don't wobble loose. Other than that, the typical there's 2 places for your sling over here, and of course there's one over here, and that's basically it. Let's check if I shoulder it. Yes, no issues with sighting the iron sight. It's quite comfortable, as you know. It's nice and round against my cheek. It's quite comfortable. There are accessories that you could put a rubber pad on this. if you would like. So yes, other than removing of the grip to disassemble, I would say this is definitely a buy. This is ATI. Let me look at the internals before I install it. Yes, there's reinforcement, pretty thick plastic beside the trigger housing. That's a good thing. The opening is 10.5 inches. And let me press this. Yes, it doesn't go in as much as the Tapco. I would say it's about the same as the Combat Exchange. There's plenty of ribbing on the handguard inside, and that's a good thing. Okay, I'll have to install it, and I'll be back. No issues with the installation of the ATI stock. However, the top handguard is a little loose, as you can tell, and the main stock is not quite close to the front ferrule. There's about 1/8 of an inch gap, and to install this, you had to remove the grip. Okay. So let's talk about the the specs. The specs is it weighs 2.8 pounds. LOP minimum is 11.5. Maximum is 15 and the 6th position. So the LOP is identical to the Tapco, except it's slightly heavier, and the reason why, because it folds. Okay, as you know, Tapco only retracts, and this one retracts and fold, and that is the main extra weight about. Okay, now I got rid of the spec. Now let's talk about the positive of the ATI. ATI, although it doesn't have a rail on the top of the handguard, and you can probably see the reason why it doesn't, but it does have a rail on the sides and the bottom. This one is missing, but there is, as you can tell, there is a position for it for the rails. It was removed, and the reason why the previous owner removed it, as you can see, he put some cuts here because he had a blade bayonet, and he had a blade bayonet, which makes no sense to me to put a blade bayonet when you're trying to go tactical cool. Another positive is I love the design. There's nice texture here, and it's kind of a little futuristic design. This is also a nice design. The back of the grip is rubberized. It feels good. Another positive, even though this is like a M4 buttstock, this is rubberized like this. So it is rubberized. So that's a nice thing. Let's see, what else? Let's talk about some of the negatives. The negatives, even though this is an M4 stock, it is not close to being like the one on Tapco. Because if you check this lock compared to the Tapco, this is a very, very cheap lock. Tapco is more like the real M4. And of course, this looks like the M4, but it's not quite. This is their own design, and of course, the sling is different. Even though the slot here for the sling is the same, you could use the same riser on here, but definitely not as superior as the one that's in the Tapco. Of course, the tube is hollow. You could put extra stuff in there by pulling this out, pulling this downwards, and this will slide out, and you can put your extra stuff in the tube. Because there is no room in the grip, they have this really strange way to attach the grip. It's not the entire grip that's attached, rather it's partly attached, and this is how it separates. Okay, and it's not even there isn't a bottom cap or anything like that. The back of the grip slides down like this. Okay, and that's where you get access to putting in a screw. and the screw isn't particularly large compared to the one on Tapco. Tapco is 2¼ inch long. This looks like an inch, and because of this short screw, this grip tends to wobble out. Okay, and I know it does because the previous owner drilled a hole and attached another screw to stop it from wobbling. Okay, this hole, previous owner did that to stop it from wobbling after a few rounds. So that is a negative. The space that could have been used, it's gone into putting this extra grip, which makes no sense to me. Okay, and these finger grooves are just way too many. I think just one would have been fine. You don't need the second one over here. Although I do like the design, but I wish they just put one finger groove and not that many. And this obviously is a problem that it does wobble out. So that is a negative. Another negative is the top cover do not slide out without disassembly. That's not a good thing. And I've tried. I could not do it. Now let's check the operational of the folding. The folding, yes, it's easy, and it does clip to the left, and it doesn't clip to the right, and that's a good thing because it doesn't hinder your charging handle. Especially if you have cheek riser on this, it wouldn't hinder that. Now the bad thing is that to unfold this, you have to press this button, okay, to unfold this like this. So let's see. Other than that, I think that's basically about it. Let me put this on and put it on my shoulder. Yes, no problem using the iron sight. The cheek on the stock is quite comfortable, of course. It's designed like an M4. And stock, there's a slight wobble on the stock because it's a folder and not a fix. Okay, so that is a slight wobble right there. And the top handguard wobbles a bit. And of course, eventually this will start to wobble. So yeah, if I were to rate the ATI, I would rate that below the Tapco. This is ProMag Archangel, and let's look at the internals. The internal is, yes, there's reinforcement, as you can see, pretty thick down here, right beside the trigger housing. Lots of ribbing down here, pretty thick. So as I push it in with my hand, it only moves in about 1/8. Yes, this is good. And I'll install it and I'll be back. Okay, about the installation, it went on very smoothly. Didn't have to do any filing or any adjusting. The handguard was probably it was pretty snug to put it in. The stock went in pretty smooth, quite easily, and there was no issue as far as the installation goes. Let's talk about the specs. This is perhaps the heaviest stock among all 6 of them. It weighed 3.4 pounds, and the LOP is min is 13.5, max is 15.25 in 4 different positions, and the space between the trigger and the back of the grip is 3 1/8. That's also the longest. And let's move on to the pros. Okay, the pro is that it has a fixed grip and it's long, and that explains why the distance between the trigger and the back of the grip is the longest. So this you could reach the lock just by pressing this. There's an extra piece right in here. Okay, all you have to do is press it like this, and pull it down, and you can reach the back of the lock this way. All right, and there is a trap door in the back, and let me use a proper tool, and here it is. It's a trap door. Put that back. It has a nice design. I like the design. It has a palm swell, and it actually does touch, the palm swell does touch the palm. And I love the pattern that's on the top handguard. And this stock obviously different. You can see this is where the extra weight went in, and also the palm swell is just not like just bulged out, but there's actually extra material that's put in behind the palm swell. So that's where the extra material went, and of course mostly went onto the stock. Nice design, very, very sturdy. This is an actual rubber pad, not a fake one that looks like it is actual rubber pad. And let's see, this is the obviously lock, easy to operate. Like I said, it's in 4 separate position, has plenty of QD. There's 2 on either side, and there is of course a spot for the sling. There is a riser, although I find this riser kind of useless because if you're pulling it out, it means your face is going to be pulled back, and so therefore the riser is going to go lower and lower, because this riser works on angle. And here's the lock. You have to push it to raise it, and when you raise it, it's in an angle. It's not like level when it comes up. This one is a little on the stiff side, but it does work. Here it is. And as you can see, this riser is in an angle. But if you're a guy with long arms and you have the stock all the way to the back, it means your face is moving further back. And as your face is moving further back, it means that this is getting lower and lower. So I don't particularly like this idea of cheek rest, but it seems to work. Let's see what else. Oh, one more thing. I guess to make it look like more AK-ish, they have this extra piece here, which I do like the idea of making this more AK-like. I really don't like the back. I never liked the looks of the back of the SKS, so I don't mind having this piece. Unfortunately, having that piece makes it that you cannot field strip this, so you have to disassemble this just to do a little bit of field stripping, cleaning. Okay, if you are wondering why there's all this white marks on the stock, well, the previous owner apparently used some sort of a chemical when he was cleaning. He doesn't actually recall what it was, but I think he kind of well, actually I won't even guess what it is, but that's what happened. It kind of damaged the surface of the stock, but nothing in terms of structural, so it's just fine. I would probably do a camo paint on that. Let's see what else. Yes, the magazine. Unfortunately, the AK magazine does not fit, but of course the Duckbill does. So obviously this is more expensive than the other previous 2, like the ATI and the Tapco, and I would rate this a positive. It's a buy. One other negative regarding this stock is that there's no rails on the front, nothing on the top or the bottom, and that would be another negative. This is the last stock, the Fab Defense UAS, and let's look at the internals before we install it. And the first thing you notice, it feels pretty light. The total weight is 2.556 pounds, which is a lot lighter than the ProMag Archangel. And it's just slightly heavier than the Tapco and the, actually it's between ATI and the Tapco. And there's another thing you notice automatically. While all the other ones have a gap distance of 10.5 inches, this one has 3 separate gaps. Why? Is because they have bridge inside. Here's one right here. It bridges the 2 sides, and here also is the second bridge. So the longest gap is about 5 inches. The second one is a 4, and the third one is 1.5. And that explains why they do not need to reinforce beside the trigger housing like the majority of them did. And you can see it's pretty light. Instead of going straight down, it's angled down and actually puts a pattern on the sides of the stock. And the front is quite complicated because this piece, front piece, is separated from the main piece and is held in by a hex screw. And the reason why is because this is about 3 or 4 inches longer than all the other stock. So when I received it, I was surprised how compact it was when I thought it was actually extra long. And if you also look at the top handguard, has a built-in rail. It's also extra long, and it's again quite complicated to install the gas tube. Okay, and I think I'll have to do an installation of how to install the Fab Defense UAS stock just by itself. It's probably the most complicated installation when it comes to these aftermarket polymer stocks. Okay, so that's what it looks like inside. So let me put them on and I'll be back. Okay, the stock of the Fab Defense UAS is now installed, and I must admit it's the most complicated installation on an SKS I have ever experienced. And therefore I'll do a separate video on how to install a Fab Defense UAS. Not only, even in the top handguard, because it has a rail, it has an extra piece over here that's removable, and it attaches to the front, and then of course it has an attachment to the back, so that gives it a stability. As long as your gas tube is steady, it will hold 0. Okay. Of course, to install the stock, this one you have to remove the grip. Okay, and this actually separate piece, the foregrip of the forearm and the main body is a separate. It's connected right here with a hex screw, so you have to screw that in. And also, to put in the trigger housing, you need to remove this AK mag catch by pushing out this pin out and putting that in. Now I can't put this AK mag catch back in because I have an extra long mag catch for the SKS because it's a SKS KD. and that's why I can't put that in. And I don't even know if I had an ordinary SKS, standard SKS, if I ever want that back. I mean, it's cool to have that AK mag catch, because instead of pulling back to release the mag, it converts to a forward movement, a forward pivot. Unfortunately, every time you want to disassemble this the SKS, you'll have to remove this. So that's just too much to disassemble. Okay, next thing is the specs. This way, surprisingly, even though it's extra long, like I said, it's about 3 inches longer than all the other ones. It weighs somewhere in the middle. It weighs 2.56 pounds, a lot lighter than the ATI and the ProMag Archangel, a little heavier than the Tapco and the Combat Exchange. The LOP is fixed at 13.5, which may be short for some people. I don't mind 13.5. I can go to 14.5 quite comfortably without any issues. And I don't particularly have long arms, but it's just I'm used to range of between 13.5 to 14.5. All right, what else? The trigger and the back of this grip is the shortest, and it's 2 and 5/8. Most of the other ones are 2 3/4, and we do have one that went all the way up to 3 1/8. And what else? Now let's talk about the Pro. The Pro, it has a nice grip. It has a one finger groove here, and we have actually seen this grip before. It actually comes from the VZ58. Over 15 years ago, I seen these as optional for the VZ58, and ergonomically they're really great. They have nice checkered pattern in the back, nice grip, and it's the favorite among VZ58, and they put that on the SKS. Good move. There is a trap door here. You'll need a tool to push the back, okay, like this, and it'll come up. There is a piece here. I don't know what this does, but I guess it just fits in a battery. It holds the battery from moving around. And there's other space you can put your stuff in there, and the trapdoor just closes like this. Okay. Now, part of the reason, like I mentioned, there's another Pro. I just love this style. It looks very futuristic. It looks like somewhere from one of those Star Trooper movies, and that's why it's you have angular for the safety here. You have angular, right, and you even hide the mag catch should you decide not to use the AK mag catch. It kind of hides your regular mag catch here, and the reason why I don't have this one in, because it actually does not fit the SKS KD mag catch, which is extra long. And the benefit for not putting the AK mag catch, it will be easier to disassemble, remove the trigger housing without punching that out every time and punching that in, which I found was a little pain in the ass. Another benefit, it has no issues feeding with the AK magazine. Some of the other stock, I couldn't fit the AK magazine. And it has plenty of rails on the side and at the bottom right here. There's another piece inside here, and that's the screw for that to attach the front furl. So that's another piece there. Now, another benefit is that the back pad is actually rubberized and not a fake plastic that I've seen before. There's plenty of spots for a sling. You get two QD here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and then you have a slot here also for the sling. I'm not particularly crazy about this particular design. I would have preferred if they just went straight through on an angular. This part is a rest. It's a cheek rest. It 5 separate position, and it raises it raises about would say an inch and a quarter. It goes up to inch and a quarter. Yeah, I know some people were complaining about the lock, which it is kind of hokey, and of course, exposed spring is never a good idea. But you know what? It's the cheek rest, so it's not as if it's really that important. Let me. It feels very comfortable, and this particular model does fold. You have more expensive model that's retract and also fold. Let's see if it works. It does work, and this one does not lock when it's folded. You just pull it out like this. Okay, you just pull it out, and it unfolds. Pretty steady. Grips are pretty good. Oh, it has a neat little feature back here. Let me remove the magazine. What it does, it's supposed to allow you to remove the top cover for fuel stripping. Unfortunately, in practice, it is not that simple. I've tried it a few times, and it was quite difficult. This top cover does not go back enough that this would easily be removed. It does work, but it does need a little bit of practice to get it to work properly. And putting back in was also pretty hard. So the idea is good. It gives you that retain that AK slant, and it allows you to field strip that without disassembling. As you know, disassembling is very difficult. However, this does require a lot of practice. Good idea, but a lot of practice. Okay, what else is left about this stock? I think basically I've covered everything. So what do I think? This is the most expensive. I do like it a lot. The major plus is that it has a lot of rails, lots of QD swivel thing, futuristic Visa 58 grips. I do like this AK catch. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll put that in because it's just a pain in the ass. The benefit is converting the catch from sliding backwards to forward pivot. It's not really worth the amount of time. You have to punch that out and punch that back in, and it's not that easy to punch that back in. So I would say this is definitely a buy, but there are some issues with the back cover, I would say here, and the basically the installation. It's quite difficult. So generally, that's basically it. It covers all 6 stocks that I have, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like and subscribe button.